In the turbulent world of Beyond the Gates, the news Anita received from her doctor should have been a moment of pure relief. A negative cancer result meant life, a second chance that not everyone is granted. But in the complicated reality surrounding her, that good news was anything but simple. It did not merely free her from a looming death sentence, it forced her to confront truths she had spent months avoiding. The weeks leading up to the results had suspended Anita between hope and despair. She had quietly prepared for the worst. She reorganized her assets, reviewed legal clauses, drafted letters she never found the courage to send. Facing the possibility of death sharpened her vision. She began to see clearly who remained by her side out of genuine care and who lingered out of obligation or calculation. In that fragile state, cracks in her closest relationships began to surface. The person who stayed closest during that time did not do so out of pure love. The attentive gestures, the steady presence, the concerned expressions, gradually they revealed more complicated motives. Financial decisions were pushed forward with unusual urgency. Suggestions about transferring control of certain holdings were framed as precautionary measures. During her fear and vulnerability, Anita had nearly signed documents that would have permanently shifted the balance of power away from her. When the doctor confirmed the negative result, relief did not arrive immediately. It came slowly, as though her mind needed time to accept that she had been given back her life. But soon after, another emotion rose stronger than joy, anger, not at fate, but at the realization of how easily she had been maneuvered into a position of weakness. She replayed the actions of those around her during her most fragile days. Encouragement had carried a trace of haste. Future plans had been drafted in ways that subtly excluded her from control. Her recovery disrupted everything. The person who had quietly anticipated a tragic outcome to solidify their own position now had to confront the fact that Anita was not only alive, but more alert than ever. The fear that once softened her had been replaced by a cool, calculating awareness. She hated how vulnerability had clouded her judgment. The sleepless nights that followed her negative diagnosis were not haunted by the threat of relapse, but by the memory of how close she had come to surrendering authority over her own life. The illness had unintentionally exposed the true nature of her relationships. Some had been genuinely afraid of losing her. Others had seen opportunity in her decline. That realization created a fracture impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, those who had positioned themselves for gain began to panic. Anita's recovery dismantled their assumptions. Investments made under the belief that she would soon lose control became liabilities. Promises made to third parties no longer had a foundation. Anxiety seeped into their behavior, manifesting as impatience and reckless attempts to salvage influence. Anita observed everything with chilling composure. She did not rush into confrontation. She understood that impulsive reactions would weaken her position. Instead, she quietly reviewed every document she had signed, audited accounts, examined contracts. Each discovery fueled her anger, but strengthened her resolve to reclaim full authority. The disease that once cornered her had become her catalyst. Survival, she realized, was not merely biological. It was political. It was about protecting dignity and control in an environment where loyalty often dissolved under the weight of profit. Her survival forced those who had bet on her downfall into defensive positions. Tension spread beneath the surface. Financial decisions were reversed. Agreements were canceled. Projects were paused. The resulting losses intensified resentment among those who had relied on her vulnerability. They felt betrayed by the very woman they had quietly prepared to replace. Anita understood she was triggering backlash. But after standing so close to mortality, appeasing others no longer seemed essential. The fear that once paralyzed her had transformed into clarity. If she had nearly lost everything, then risking strained relationships was no longer terrifying. Still, a part of her grieved. She had believed in loyalty. She had believed that affection could withstand ambition. Discovering otherwise wounded her more deeply than the medical uncertainty ever had. Yet that pain hardened quickly into determination. As news of her health spread, the community responded with congratulations and visible relief. Beneath the smiles, however, calculations resumed. Her survival meant the expected shift in power would not occur. In a world driven by influence, that fact alone was destabilizing. Anita stood at the center of the growing storm, no longer the trembling woman awaiting a diagnosis. She had stepped back from the edge of annihilation carrying anger forged by fear. She understood that she had been given a second chance, and she had no intention of wasting it by returning to vulnerability. The negative result was not simply a medical report. It was the beginning of a reckoning. Relationships would be tested. Motives would be exposed. Difficult decisions would demand to be made. Anita may have defeated the disease, but the real battle, the fight to reclaim power and trust, had only just begun.